Before we start, I want to tell a quick story about kind of where this framework came from, where the seeds of germination really sprouted. Back in college, I was a new husband and contracted cadet in the Air Force. And to my great excitement, I was awarded a pilot slot. For the first time in my life, I was just completely thrilled and excited about my career. I could just see myself screaming through the skies, of course, in an F-22. And I could just, visualize that picture of me with my kneeling in front of my aircraft, with the helmet on my knee. I was just really excited. That was until late one night, Melissa, my wife, asked me to give it up. Once you graduate pilot school, that would be 12 years in the Air Force. And at the time, pilots had a really high deployment tempo. At the time, it was expected to be 6 months at home, 6 months deployed, not counting any, trips around the country or TDYs where, you'd be gone away at a different base or wherever for a couple of weeks. So this essentially translated to me being gone a lot for the next 12 years. Of the next 12 years, I might be gone for anywhere between 5 to 4 years of them. That is just a lot to be gone when my wife and I initially planned on having a large family. And so as we're I came home and realized that this 12 years only started after pilot training. So this was looking like 15 years in the Air Force. My wife was already pretty hesitant about being in the military. And so when she asked me to give this up, my first thought was like, she's just really tired right now. It was late. It was like 10 o'clock, which was late for us at the time. She's tired. She's emotional. She'll feel better in the morning. But she persisted. And I just remember her being super vulnerable and just crying and asking me if I'd be willing to give it up and do something else. And I just remember having this flash of anger just spread through my chest. It just choked me. I couldn't believe that she would ask me to give this up, something that she was just so incredibly excited about for the first time in my life. And I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk. And so I left the bedroom and I realized I was so upset and so angry. I just had to kind of get rid of this energy. So I strapped on my shoes. I went for a run. Didn't bring my cell phone, which, looking back at the time, I would not give that merited advice to anyone to do this. But as my feet were pounding on the pavement and all these thoughts were racing through my head, all I could think about was how selfish it was that she was asking this. I was so confused and angry and upset. And I think you can hear an upset baby in the background. Eventually the anger subsided and my head kind of cleared. And eventually 2 questions came to my mind that kind of completely changed my paradigm. Up to this point, I figured I had 2 options. One, I could capitulate to what my wife was asking and just do something that'd be miserable in a cubicle, Air Force thing. And I just didn't want to do that. Second, I could continue with my pilot slot and hope that my wife kind of adjusted to it, came along. But my wife's fairly strong-willed. Like it's one of the things I love most about her. She knows what she wants and she goes after it. I'm not sure what that would mean for my marriage if I just blew her off and proceeded doing my own thing. So on one hand, my dream career, and second, my marriage was kind of the 2 options I had in my mind. Until these 2 questions came to me. The first question is, what did I really value in life? Because up to this point, I really valued a career I was excited about. And I was thinking through about what it is that I really value. I realized that as I thought about my most meaningful experiences, it was in seeing and in being part of someone else's growth. And it's one of the reasons why my wife and I got married. So we both realized we wanted large families, and we craved that experience as parents of helping others and each other grow. And that led to the second question, which was this: for the next 12 to 15 years, what did I want to experience as a father? And as I thought about, if I stayed as a pilot, what could I experience? Well, I could experience a lot of time away from my family. I was going to experience missing birth, potentially missing births, missing birthdays, missing first steps, first words, missing anniversaries. And I asked myself, is that what I wanted to experience? I realized it wasn't. What I really wanted to experience was being present for my children. And I realized that the choice for me was obvious. I wanted to be present with my family. That's what I wanted to experience. So I went from this external perspective of someone trying to make me into forcing me to make certain choices I didn't want to make, to making decisions based off of some internal values and the vision of what I wanted for the future. Now it's been interesting. It's been 12 years since we were married, and we now have bang children between the ages of 10 and 0. We have 3 biological children, 2 private adopted, and 4 in some, either still in foster care or adopted out of foster care. I had a successful career as a nuclear launch officer in the Air Force, and then went to a private company that did child nutrition auditing as their chief operating officer, and then starting my own company as a certified business and family life coach. And during all of it, we've had this amazing physical and emotional, intimate relationship. And we've been able to organize and really outline a lot of these principles as we've helped other parents experience this same kind of change, this change from conflicting desires and values to harmonizing what they really want for themselves and for the future. And so that's where we've developed this framework. And so what are the 4 simple steps? It's a big picture strategy for today. 1, shared values. Your family needs shared values. 2nd, you need a vision for your family based on those shared values. 3rd, you need a purpose, which I say mission and purpose. Essentially, a vision is the destination you want. The mission is how you get it. And together, your vision and mission form into a purpose. And finally, 4th, you need a plan of how your family is going to get there. Because stopping here is all well and good, but it will never happen without the plan. It's the whole, what's the difference between a dream and a goal? Now, a goal has a plan to it. So these are the 4 things we're going to be talking about. So let's dive into why shared values are key. Now, I've seen a lot on social media recently about parenting styles, and a lot of us want to think that the key to a successful family is how we parent. So it's, gentle parenting, authoritative parenting, permissive parenting. And as kind of our parenting is kind of central to how we raise our families, a lot of us can get into this mind trap of thinking that our parenting style is the most important thing or important key to a successful family. And it's not. Success does not equal parenting styles. Parenting styles orbit what's really important, but it's not the center. Parenting styles can help you resolve conflict in your family, but having shared values will address the conflict at its root. So why values? We all face a lot of problems. One of the biggest problems in our day and age, in the information age, is that there's so much information out there and we have so many choices. So this is I don't know why this can be a large person, I guess. We have so many choices, so much information out there. And what we often experience is overwhelm. We don't know who to listen to. There are so many different parenting books out there, so many different gurus, influencers. We have advice from people who aren't parents to our own parents. And it can be difficult to know who to listen to and what choices to make. Let's look at choices. All of us have opportunities at work that could provide additional money, whether it's a side hustle, moving forward for a promotion. But all those choices come with costs, which means additional time and additional responsibilities that might pull us away from the family. So what's the right choices to make? Creating more opportunities for our family through a higher income, or staying in a lower income, but potentially having more time together. And I'm not saying that's an exclusive decision, but that's just using it as an example. You could potentially, through upscaling and education, get a higher paying job, but still have the same amount of time for your family. I'm just giving a case example of some of the decisions we have. Or what about our kids? There's so many different extracurricular activities that they can participate in. Will music or learning how to code or sports be the best thing for them? Or do they need free time and unstructured time where, every minute of their day isn't planned out? Or just look at their education. You go private schools, charter schools, go public schools, support, public education. Or you could go to homeschooling, something where you can teach them the values that you want to teach them, or unschooling. What's right for your family? What's right for your children? And in all this overwhelm, we just get so tired and fatigued. And so how do you find your rest time? You could give your kids screen time so that you can rest, so you can parent better. But that comes at, the cost of your children on the screen time. So what's the right decision? And without values, we get overwhelmed by all the information, the choices. We don't know what information to pay attention to. We don't know what choices there are to make. Without values, we're like a ship down anchor. We crowdsource all of our answers on the internet and Google and parenting groups, Facebook groups, or following whatever influencer we found on Instagram and TikTok. We outsource it. And that's where our source of insecurity and anxiety can come from, because it's now just whatever the popular opinion is, and that can change. So our values help us to know what to pay attention to. If you understand that you value family time above all else, you know that you can skip on any additional, promotion or job opportunity that takes you away even more from being together as a family. But if you really value the opportunities you can provide your children, well, then maybe you're willing to sacrifice that time because you know that they will be better off in the future. So our values give us that compass. It helps us know what to pay attention to and the choices that we can feel confident making because they're aligned with what we really think is best for us and what we find valuable. So the question then comes, how do we find out what we value? How do we discover what our values are? And a step beyond that, how do we discover what our shared values are as a family? There's several ways we can go about this. One of the ways that I have found the most beneficial is to go through this exercise. And if you'd like this exercise for your own, just go ahead and drop your name in the comments or shoot us an email at contact@𝗟𝗲𝗀coaching.com. And we can send you this workbook for free. And it provides you a step-by-step process of how to engage in this conversation with your family in discovering, these 4 simple steps of values, vision, mission, and purpose, and your plans for the future. So go ahead and you can drop it in the comments or again, email us. We will get a link up once it is ready so that people can just click on it in the show notes. This will be posted on YouTube for everyone. Okay, so there's 2 questions I like to think about that kind of help really drives us to recognize what we value. And that is asking ourselves, who are the people we admire most in our lives? Think about it. Who are the people you really, really admire? For me, it was, I'm LDS or Mormon. And when I was on my mission, I had this president, the mission president, who's kind of overseeing all of us young men and women who are out there for our church, President Godfrey. One of the things I love most about him is he was just so fearless and loving. And he was willing to say whatever he needed to say to me to help me grow. I feel like he was really invested in my growth. And I grew so much under his attention, his leadership, and his interest in me. And I had some incredibly, really meaningful experiences in that process with him while I was there. Now, so think about those people for you. Who was it that you most admire and why? Now, what was it? What was it that they did? Well, who was it? The different circumstances or choices or things that they said that make you admire them. And that can start helping you identify what were the values or character that they had that you wish you could emulate. Another way we can go about this is asking yourself this: what are you, in looking over the events of your life or choices, what are you most proud of? And what experiences do you find most painful? So proud moments and painful moments. Our proud moments are often tied when we're living our values or something that we value, whether it was achievement. If we value achievement, or if we value times of growth. So for instance, growth is a huge thing for me. So times when I really grew and I was able to see that, I really value. I was really proud of those moments. Painful often means we're not living true to our values, or that our experiences don't align with them. So if we really value connection with other people, and for whatever reason that connection is severed, it can be very painful for us. Or if we really value, accomplishment, and in our view, we didn't accomplish something because of something that we did, that could be really painful. So our proud and painful moments can help orient us to what we really value in life. One of the exercises we have in our workbook, Discovering Your Family's Purpose and Plan, is we have this big, long list of values. And what I would recommend is, if you want to do this exercise, again, just comment in the comments or email us at contact@nearcoaching.com. We have this big, long list of values that you then go through and you highlight kind of the 15 that resonate most with you. And then you categorize them into groups. And then you select one that really identifies the theme for that grouping. And then you rank them. And you take those top two, and those become your core values. That's not saying that these are stuck in stone. It's just at this time, these are the two values that really are center for you. Your values will act as a compass. You'll know how to sift information. You'll be able to make more confident decisions. Your decision-making will be easier because you know how to make those decisions based on what you really value. So now that you have your compass, you are now primed to think about a destination. So let's move on to step 2, a vision. Now the Proverbs, one of my favorite Proverbs is, where there's no vision, the people perish. So what is it that we experience when we lack a vision? Without a vision, we don't know how to spend our resources. Just think about, your companies and your careers. If you don't have a vision for the company, you don't know how to make strategic decisions today for 3 years from now. If your vision is to become, the leading, say in your industry, you want to be known for customer service, then you need to know how to measure customer satisfaction, which means you may need to start strategically allocating resources to measuring customer service and how you can get that feedback loop in your company. So visions for our families helps us know what we really it provides the destination. And the vision has to be built on our shared values. And this is something we didn't really talk about before, but the reason why it has to be shared values is because individual values may conflict and clash. If your spouse or partner really values stability and you really value excitement or novelty, those two are going to clash. And unless you have some shared way, some value to help balance those, your family will clash. And this is why parenting styles, though they help resolve conflict, having shared values helps address the conflict at the root. And having a shared vision based on those shared values helps move you in the same direction because you both care about the destination. A vision statement is an act of creation. You are creating what you want for your family in the future. And if you don't have that, your family will just kind of happen to you. And that only leads to a life of regret because you know what your values were, but then you regret that you never lived a life that was really centered on them. A vision helps you, even more than values, guides your decision making for what you want to accomplish in the future. So as you go about developing a vision, do it together as a family. You can create a vision for yourself as an individual, especially as a parent. For instance, one of my vision for myself as a father is become someone who can help my children learn and grow. And for me, it kind of encapsulates one of my values of meaning, because helping others learn and grow is something that's really meaningful to me. So it encapsulates that. There's my value into my vision statement. And also growth. I really care about growth and about becoming someone, because I recognize, sometimes I struggle to live aligned with my own values. So remember, you can only control yourself in your vision. So if you're not creating a vision statement with your spouse or partner or the rest of your family, this vision statement can only really be for you, because you can't force your vision on the rest of your family. Now, obviously, if you and your spouse come with a vision statement and your children, your children are growing up in, there may be a point when you revisit that vision statement when they're old enough so that everyone's on board. Okay. Let's talk about mission and purpose. Mission and purpose. So if your vision is a statement about what you want to accomplish in the future, who you want to become in the future, your mission statement is the principles by which you will achieve that. Now, the problem we have if we stop at vision without a buy statement is that the mission informs you how you will accomplish your vision. And if we don't know the how, a destination or goal can often become very overwhelming. And then as we move forward, recognizing that we're not moving towards our vision, the result is this feeling of despair and regret. So having a mission, adding in a mission statement or to create a full purpose lets you know how you're going to achieve the vision that everyone wants to get to or to achieve. So what does a mission sound like that's based on your values? So going back to me, I may say something along the lines of, let's say our shared family values is love and growth. So the vision statement may sound something like, we'll make the world a more loving place by increasing our emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and physical capacities and desires to help ourselves, our families, and others. So you can see how love and growth is kind of sprinkled throughout the whole vision mission statement that forms the purpose. This is what we are here for. This is why we work. This is why we do all these activities that we're doing. It's for this purpose. And the result is that it provides your family a real sense of clarity, because you know how to make decisions. It gives you clarity as to why you're here. This is why we have a family. This is what we're doing. And along with that, it helps you achieve a real sense of confidence in your decision-making because you know what it's tied to. Something larger than yourself. You know that your decisions are in line with your values and your purpose. So you don't have to crowdsource your decisions anymore. You don't have to ask your gurus. You don't have to ask, the parenting books or whatever it is. Not to say that you won't. I'm just saying that your values will guide the information you seek and the choices you make. And because you're aligned with your purpose and your values, you'll feel much more confident about the choices you make. And you will find that what the experiences you have are that much more meaningful because you're doing something you really value as a family. When you're coming up with your family purpose statement, and again, we have some other exercises you can do in our workbook. I would say go for good, not perfect, because you can always revisit your purpose statement, but it's really critical to have a purpose statement to help guide your family in your decision-making. And it just alleviates a lot of different pressure and confusion, especially if you just feel like you're stuck in a rut and there isn't any change. This will give you the confidence, what you need to do to change, because you know, like, well, these are my values, and so let's live in line with them. Okay, so we have a direction, we have a destination, we know the principles by which we're going to do it, and that's giving us the purpose statement for our family. It's going to give us a greater sense of identity as a family, because we know what we value, we know what we're doing, we don't feel aimless. We have something to anchor to that's unique to us. Now, though, is the plan. So to say you have a compass, a destination, and a strategy, and now you need the plan. If we don't have a plan on how to accomplish these things, the issue is that we will not know what to sacrifice in order to achieve our long-term objective day to day. If you don't have a plan, you're going to experience frustration as you don't feel like you're making traction on this vision you have, and you realize day to day in the day-to-day chaos that you're experiencing greater frustration as you have the objective and you're not meeting it. A plan helps you know that, okay, this is how we're going to address these issues. This is, the obstacles you need to move. Otherwise, it just remains too vague to accomplish anything. So we recommend breaking your plan down into 3 bite-sized pieces. You have a 10-year goal, 3-year family picture, and a 1-year plan. And you notice this is quite symmetrical to your vision, mission, your vision and mission. Your vision, your 10-year goals can be a lot. It's to me the broad strokes, and it won't be as specific as your 3-year, and not nearly as specific as your 1-year plan. But this is the concrete manifestation of your vision 10 years down the road. And then this is your 3-year plan that you think, okay, well, if we're going to move forward in this direction to achieve this in 10 years, what will need to have happened 3 years from now? And knowing that, what is it we have to do this year to move towards our 3-year goal? Okay, so let's talk about how we go about building a 10-year goal. And again, this is all in our workbook. It provides kind of a step-by-step with some great examples and spaces for you to write down your notes, your thoughts. So we're really excited to share it with you. Okay, so we kind of pulled off of some business principles here as we look towards growth. Owners, when owners think about their companies, they usually have 3 strategies. There's kind of a growth mentality, there's a profit mentality, and And then there's kind of a control mentality. If they're looking for growth, they want to grow the company. That's what they're going to be doing strategically. Otherwise, they may be looking at the liquidity, how easy they can pull cash out of the company to live a certain lifestyle. And so there's kind of that they want the finances to live the way they want. And then third, for control, they've created a company and a culture that they really value. And so they want that culture and kind of the company they've built to stay the same. They want to have control over that. So how can we translate this to our families? Well, I've kind of narrowed, what we've done is we have size in terms for growth. We have financials, and then we have culture. So when we think of our 10-year goal, I like breaking it down this way. What does our relationship look like? And what's its size? Do we, how many kids or how many children or dogs or, whatever it may be? How many family members do we have? This was big for Melissa and I. Excuse me while I get some water. This was big for Melissa and I. We want a large family. I think when we were first married, I would say our number was 10. We wanted 10 kids, which is really large. But we're ambitious. So, and we're at 9 kids, so we're just one short, and who knows what that'll happen. Financials. This could, look at your family income. We could look at, debt. Maybe you want to be free of credit card debt or free of short-term debt. Or even our savings. 10 years down the road, what do we want our family income to look like? What does our debt look like? What does our savings look like? So we could form, our 10-year, our financials can help us form our 10-year goal. And then culture, culture is one of the biggest keys in this area because it informs our day-to-day experiences in our family. And here you may just want to be thinking of, kind of the traditions or weekly activities. What are you experiencing on a regular basis together as a family? Maybe it's travel. Maybe you guys want to travel together as a family, experience new things. Maybe it's education. Maybe you really want to be education focused as a family, or maybe you really value family time, and so you're spending a lot of time together as a family. And so maybe you're not doing. If you are doing organized sports, maybe you're all doing the same sport so you can all be there together. So those are the kind of things that you can think of, maybe it's being together. So there's a lot of ways you can approach culture. For my family, we are really into board games. We're kind of like a board game family. And so we play games a lot together as a way to bond together. We have a lot of other traditions that we do that help us form the culture that we have. So as you think about your 10-year goal, think about your relationship. I think this is key that, if you have a vision of still being married together 10 years from now, you're much more likely to be married 10 years from now. Number of family. Well, my wife and I, we ran into fertility issues very early on in our marriage. And there's that point where we didn't think we'd be having any more children. And that's where we're at right now. We can't have any more biological children, even though my wife still looks into reverse vasectomies. Financials, what's the kind of income that you need to support what do you want to do together as a family? How do you feel about debt? Whether that be, I know my parents growing up, they avoided debt at all costs, even if that meant breaking down a lot on the side of the road with used cars. Savings, how much do you want to have saved up in 10 years? So these are some great ways. Your 10-year goal could be one aspect of this or all three or any combination. But start developing a 10-year goal, and then we build everything off of that. So what does it look like after we've done this? What does our 3-year family picture look like? This is going to get us a little more detail. I'm sorry, kind of, so I'm looking up here to my handwriting. It's kind of sloppy near there at the end. Okay. What does our 3-year picture look like? Well, you're going to still have the same metrics as your 10 years. So you're going to have your size. You have your finances. You're going to have your culture. But then we get into some more. We're going to be looking at key metrics or activities. And that's where it differentiates between our 10-year. So let's say, let's take for size. If we wanted, 3 years, if we're just starting out and 10 years down the road, we wanted to have, say, 5 children. Well, that's, roughly a child every 2 years. And so if we don't have any children at this point, we'll want to have had, 1 child. So you put that here, 1 child. The key activities here will, of course, be co-oppression baby making. But it could also mean other things to support that. So maybe you've moved to a house that can, whatever it may be. Maybe you need a larger car, a larger home to fit the child. Is there anything else that you need to change? Maybe health. If you want to have children, 3 years from now, in the 3rd year after having a child, what does your health need to be looking like? What activities need to be mindful of to keep you moving towards your 10-year goal? So you may be looking at, your physical health. So that may mean something about your nutrition, how much you're exercising, sleeping. You may have to look at what your job is like, because obviously children cost. And so what does that mean for your education? So you're going to start looking at key activities that you need to start accomplishing, or key metrics. How many jobs you've applied for, how many years of schooling you've completed, job applications. You really want to start building a picture of what does your family look like to achieve these up here. And you're going to get a little more detailed down here, the key activities or metrics. And your 1-year plan is going to go even in a little more in depth. Again, you're going to have everything that you did previously. So you have your size. It's going to have your finances, culture. But when it comes to key metrics, you're going to develop a focal metric. The thing is, between your day-to-day chaos, you don't want to put too much on yourself, because the more you have, the more you're going to spread yourself thin. You're going to achieve more if you focus on one thing. So you're going to have a focal metric. For my wife, health was a huge aspect, a very large variable that affected her pregnancies. So when we were doing this originally, when we planned out ahead, health was a really big focal metric for us, especially her nutrition. because she has autoimmune disorders, her nutrition really affects her flare-ups with rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation, headaches, pain in her joints. So if we really wanted to be able to be at a place when we have more children, she needed to be paying really close attention to her health, which is really affected by her nutrition. If her feet and joints are hurting, she's not going to be able to exercise. And so we identified this as the focal metric we had to pay attention to postpartum. So we know what the focal metric is. And I'm actually going to erase this. We know what the focal metric is. So then we go a little bit deeper. We're going to identify our rocks. Now this comes from Stephen R. Covey's example of priorities, where you have the jar, and if you put in all the sand and all the pebbles, all of a sudden you can only fit like one rock in there. But if you put in the rocks first, all the stuff fills in between. So your rocks are like the key things that have to be done each quarter. Now this works amazingly for companies. It's funny because companies are organizations that we really need to succeed if we're going to, if they're going to perpetuate. And so we really need to pull all these lessons learned from business into our families. Quarterly priorities, quarterly rocks is one of them. So, and we look at, a quarter is 90 days. So we want to look at what are the key priorities, key things that we need to accomplish over the next 90 days or 3 months for us to move our plan forward. Okay, so if we know that nutrition is the focal metric, some things we need to do is we need to find out what she's sensitive to. So sensitivities. So we had to identify her sensitivities. What was the food that her autoimmune disorder was really reacting to negatively? Okay. We had to figure out a fitness routine that she could do postpartum. Also, when we had our first child, we were still in college. And so in order to support another child, we also need to do well in school and graduate. So we need to look at grades, maintaining a high GPA to maintain our Air Force scholarship. So we just put GPA. Okay, so when you're identifying rocks, less is more here because you have so much going on day to day that big key priorities, the more you have, the less likely you are going to get any of them done. So I would focus on no more 2 to 3 rocks for your family at any one time. And then you sign out who's going to be responsible and accountable for these. Okay, so sensitivities, Melissa. Fitness routine. Now at the time, I was doing a lot of fitness with the Air Force. So she actually assigned me to help her come up with this. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then, of course, we were both in school, but mine was the one that really mattered for our Air Force scholarship. So I was responsible for this one. Let's not say that she wouldn't do things to support me, but this is what I was responsible for. Okay. So we know what our rocks are. Now we think about, okay, what's everything in order for us to accomplish these new things? Does there's any obstacles, or we're going to have to do something to change. So when we look at our rocks, we want to ask ourselves, what do we need to change in order to make this happen? So we create a change list. This gets us into an adaptive mindset. Some people might call this an obstacle list. Like, what are all the reasons that would prevent me from doing this? And I found that creates kind of a victim mentality or a outside forces mentality. And sometimes we feel like out of control. Like, well, I'm not sure if I can, this is something outside this obstacle is something outside. So we want to focus on things that we can change to make things happen. So that's why I want to say change list. So this focuses on everything that we can control and to adapt. And so let's look at nutrition. Okay, well, what is in order to figure out what our sensitivities are, what do we need to change? So to this point, Melissa had never journaled at all for what she ate. So we need to start journaling. Okay, which means we need to get a journal or set a time. Okay, we've never done this before. This is something we need to change. But then we may need to do tests. That's an obstacle. How do we know what? We don't know what she's sensitive to. That's an obstacle if we want to identify it. So we need to identify, start journaling on what she's eating. We have to go out and change our routine to go get some tests done. What are some other things we can do for like our fitness routine? Well, at this point, Melissa didn't really have a fitness routine, so we need to start changing that. And so we need to look at our schedules, adjust our schedules. Because we also had a child at this point. So what do we need to do? We need to change our schedules to get fitness in for both of us. And so you can kind of go through and identify areas that will require change. In another session, another program, everything that I've covered today is part of one program in a 3-legged stool that we call the family operating system. Family operating system. I'm just put FOS right here. We have our family purpose and plan, P&P. We have processes. Our weekly planning, the traditions and weekly activities you do to support your culture, how you make decisions together as a couple. This all goes down into processes. It helps automate your growth, helps automate your success as a family. Over here is a key piece that we call becoming. We have to become someone that can achieve our purpose and plan, and someone who can keep our processes going. And this is the kind of the cornerstone of our coaching program. If you're interested in learning more about this, I want to introduce to you, if I can, our Courageous Family Coaching Program. Now, this is a phenomenal program that's going to help you achieve all of these things. Now, we do have a kind of a go on your own pace online course that you can do. But if you want to kind of jumpstart your change, jumpstart your healing, we recommend you apply for our coaching program. We can help you develop a tailor-made program for you and your family, answer questions, and help you step all along the way. Becoming is really learning about managing our mind and harnessing our emotions. So if any of you are interested, go ahead and put in the chat. We're at the end of our time here. But what I want to promise you is if you will develop your family's purpose and plan, you will experience greater confidence, greater relief from overwhelm and anxiety, and you'll be able to move forward and lead the change you want in your family because you have a destination you all want to go towards. You know that destination is built on what you really value, and you know how you're going to do it because of your purpose and plan. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for our group coaching meetup, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.